We wanted to find out a little bit more about Agria Equine Insurance because they have come on board with the Eventing podcast. They have a brilliant message to share, and I'm delighted to say Vicky Wentworth, Chief Executive of Agria UK, is with me. Vicky, say I have to make a claim. Is that going to then affect my premium for the next year?
No, we absolutely don't put the premiums up because of claims. What happens is it's the same as human life insurance. Yeah, you know, the risk gets greater as the animal gets older. So there are price increases at the point at which our data, our evidential data tells us that the horses are more likely to have ailments, for example. So the price curve moves with the data that we've got through the course of the animal's life. But you absolutely, I guarantee, we do not put prices up as a result of somebody claiming. It's all about the horse having a much, much better quality of life.
I love that because actually everything I've found with Agria is that it's sort of run by horse people for horse people, and everybody seems to really understand actually what it's like to be in that situation and have kind of been there themselves, which makes a massive difference. So listeners, next up on our Horse of a Lifetime series in partnership with Agria, we have one of the most well-known Irish riders on the circuit. I am very excited for this show. I have a feeling, listeners, I know which direction it is going to go. Sarah Ennis, welcome to the Eventing podcast. Who is your Horse of a Lifetime?
It would have to be Horseware Stellar Rebound. One and only Rocket.
Rocket, love Rocket. He was the horse who took you to a top 10 and individually at a European Championships, part of that historic Irish silver medal at the World Equestrian Games in Tryon in 2018. But I feel like there's some horses that capture the imagination of the public, and he always had such a real zest and enjoyment and extravagant way of going that so many people fell in love with him along the way. So take us back to the start of his journey and how Rocket came to you in the first place.
So Rocket, I went to see as a 4-year-old. A friend of mine, Jill Revel, was riding him for a lady called Irene Lawler, who owned him. And I went to her yard to see him. I really liked him. He was my size. He's actually a lot smaller than people realise.
How big is he?
He's all wither. And at his wither, he might touch 16 hands. But if you took his wither away, I'd say he's 15 too. He's tiny.
Okay.
And people think he's big because my feet barely go off the end of the saddle. And they're like, oh, I thought he was 17 hands. And they're like, he's tiny. And I'm like, yes, he is very small. Heart of a lion, but he's tiny. And I remember going to see him and I liked him. He really moved. His canter was enormous. And when he jumped, he got huge height off the ground, but his front legs just dangled down. And I remember thinking will that get any better? Will that get neater? And I was like, do you know what? He has such spring off the ground. I'm going to put it that when he's a little bit more confident, his technique will improve. And I went to buy him and he was lame.
Oh.
So I think I don't know whether he did something to himself in the stable or whatever. So I was like, just give him a week and we'll vet him again then. And to be fair, he had a harsh vetting. I remember being the vets all day. She really put him through his paces. She x-rayed every part of his body and he passed. He couldn't have been a tougher vetting. So my mum bought him for me, which was, my mum ended up passing away from cancer. So I suppose he became more special to me. And at one point he was worth a lot of money and we did put a price on him, but he kept failing the vets. And I just took it as a sign he was meant to stay with me. And I was actually really glad he was meant to stay with me and he wasn't. I find it very hard to compete a horse of that value and say no, because I suppose we have to make a living and we sell our own. So, yeah, I was glad the decision was made for me.
Was he always sound during this point? It just was something that there was just something that it didn't go through the vetting. Because you kind of feel like in those circumstances that actually it almost is the stars aligning just to say, do you know what? You're meant to keep him.
He always had foot trouble. And although when he was young and he was vetted, and I'm always there for all the vettings and all the vet visits. And I saw in my own eyes when he trotted that little tight circle on concrete, he was 100%. But actually 2 years later, when he was 6 years old, I was trotting down a hill and I was like, that just doesn't feel 100%. And Marcus Swale put him on a circle, and I was like, oh no. I was like, that doesn't look great. So we just had to play around with the shoeing a bit and try and get his feet a bit better balanced. His feet weren't great, and that his heels kind of tended to run under towards his toes, so we couldn't get him up in his heels. So we always had to put in a support, like a raised heel, and then that was great for years. And then we struggled again, and I ended up with Jeremy Stanley, and he was amazing. Like Rocket, and I still have them. I kept them all. Has a box of gym shoes. And they were as expensive. Like when I add the cost of his shoes, like Jeremy was amazing in making all these weird shoes, and he always trotted down in them. It was amazing. He just kept moving around the angle and playing with them, and a plate here and a raise here and file this side and not do that. And I was like, I don't know, yeah, a genius. So that kept him on the road for a long time, along with Ger Kelly, who was a very good vet. So
do you think, like, looking back at actually the kind of the management of him, that actually his management has taught you a huge amount in terms of how you run your yard and your horses and team now?
Yeah, like I learned a huge amount. I met a lot of people, a lot of vets. I met other farriers at events. So like, and I love the management side, and I would say I'm pretty good at the old trot ups now. I've did 3 in Tryon, and that was the most nerve-wracking time, I think, of my entire life. So yeah, like I spent hours with Marcus. I spent a day in Tryon with Marcus trying to get him to trot well. So yeah, it taught me a lot. And I think I think I live by the saying, what's meant to be won't pass you by. And as upsetting as something can be at a time, like he was lining, he would have got an individual silver medal, only we hit a pole. And I just think it just was, for some reason, it just wasn't meant to be. And for what he did for me that day, because he was a bit footsore, his cross country, his shoe passed me out over my head 3/4 of the way round. And I saw it and went, oh no. And I knew he'd be a bit footy. So yeah, I think it just makes you be more appreciative. And I do believe if it's meant to be, it won't pass you by. Otherwise, I think I'd go insane.
I think that's a good life motto, to be honest.
Yeah.
What was he like, or what is he like as a person?
As a youngster, he was really bold, really unruly. In 2 strides, you'd canter a 20 by 40 arena. His canter was really difficult, and it took me years to get it. And I remember Ian Woodhead turned around and we finally got a flying change and a nice canter. And he said, I didn't want to tell you this, but I would have given up on that. I was like, thanks, Ian.
But if Ian's saying that, you know it's tough.
Yeah, I loved him dearly. So, yeah, he was very difficult as a youngster. I remember hunter trialing in Tats, and my sister passed me out 3 times on 3 different horses, and I was still trying to get him round the one class. I was like, and she kept waving as she went by, and I was just at every fence. I had to try it about 5 times, and he'd run out, he'd run away. I'd have to come back. He took a lot to get going, but when he decided to trust you, he was incredible. So, but it took many years to get the brakes functioning.
One extreme to the other.
Yes. Yeah. He went from, like, I suppose, very nervous and not sure, to then I've got this a little bit. I'll grab the bit and I'll run. But God, when you got him on your side, his cross country rounds, and I think for me, Chatsworth always stands out for him. He was just a machine. Oh,
he was one of those horses. It was funny when you said about his height, because he always, my memories of him were that he was always a bit of a pocket rocket, that he was still very petite, and he always struck me as quite sort of a compact, fiery, fast little fighter character. But he was quite small. When you were coming up the levels, and obviously he hadn't had the most sort of, successful start to his country career. What was it that was the turning point? What did you do in your training to get that trust and to kind of start that partnership really cementing?
Well, I suppose I suddenly realised, like, when you're on a horse like him and he is strong, I really found a weak link in my cross-country riding. So when I came across a combination, I'd stand there and try up a straight line through it, because I was like, I can't turn. So I'll try and come at the first on an angle and see, can I line the 3 or 4 up and get through them? So actually, I started going to Chris Bartle, and that was a major change for me, like for the rest of my cross country riding forever. I learned so much. So that definitely was a turning point. And I suppose up to then, I hadn't thought of doing maybe so much cross country training. Like you trained a lot in your show jumping, you trained a lot in your dressage. And then I was like, well, I don't really train a whole pile with cross country. Like you go schooling and jump a few fences, but not actually train. So I kind of found, I suppose, a weak link in what I was doing. And then it was appearing in results where I'd have a run out cross country or I'd have an issue. So yeah, that's when I started properly cross country training and setting up proper exercises and proper schooling sessions.
Was there a moment coming up through the levels with him that was that sort of sliding doors moment of actually this is a horse that's got the ingredients to go all the way to the very top?
I suppose, well, his first 4-star short was in Campfire and he was 10, I think. And actually he was clear, but they gave me a stop because I did a route out of the water. And I think I was right, but I was so busy with other horses, I couldn't fight it in the time because I didn't realize the results had come out. So we actually hadn't had a run out. I had just gone a long route.
Okay.
So that was his first clear round at 4-star. And yeah, I suppose then, like his dress on the flat, he felt amazing. And he was very good at jumping. And I thought if I could get the breaks and the cross country riding better, like he just got faster. Like when I suppose probably Chatsworth was one of the places he ran fastest. And I thought, jeepers, he's incredible. And like, God, he can't have it right all the time. And I missed badly at a table in Chatsworth and he just took off. It was like he was able to save me. Like he had the speed, the scope to actually save me on top of everything else. So.
Mum, hold my beer. I've got this. I mean,
Yeah.
his Chatsworth form. Let's just talk about this for a second because he went. I think I'm right in saying this for the first time in 2014, and he won the 3-star as it was then, the 4-star as it is now. He went back in 2015 and finished second. He went back in I think it was a little break then. He went back in 2016 and finished. That was the first ERM that was at Chatsworth, the Event Rider Masters, finished 8th, but that was such a high quality field that 8th was a very, very good result. Then he went to the Event Rider Masters again in 2018 and finished second. Like his Chatsworth form, as you say, was exceptional. That isn't a venue that, it's a tough place. Ian Stark cross country track, hills. It's a lot of sort of blood, a lot of power, a lot of scope that's required. What was it about him that made him love Chatsworth so much?
I think because he was so feisty and he was out of a thoroughbred dam. That galloping was just so easy. It doesn't matter how hard the hill was. He got to the top and was like, woohoo, and he just off you go again. He never got to the top of a hill and thought, oh, like I never felt him slow and draw breath ever. Okay. He didn't know what getting tired was. So
that's
I think
really special.
Yeah, I realize now, I suppose, since I've had more, I've not many, like Grantstown Jackson will be along the same lines as him. He's like, I was looking at his breeding, like he is all thoroughbred bar one draft on one side. And to have that blood cross country is they just don't need to stop to draw breath. They just keep going. They're incredible.
It's really interesting you say that about the Chatsworth Hills, because the amount of horses I've watched go around Chatsworth and you see them get to the top of the hill and you can kind of visibly see them go, oh, and I can't say I blame them because I probably look like that when I'm walking the course. It is tough, but actually it's unbelievably special when you have a horse like that. He made his championship debut at the World Equestrian Games in Caen in 2014, which was the seriously wet, muddy, bottomless.
It was a bit like that when I went back again this time.
Yeah, it was pretty miserable. At the start of this show, actually, listeners, we were talking about how dreadful the weather has been recently, and it felt very reminiscent of that. How was that sort of championship? Because I think it was your second senior call up for Ireland.
That's when I really realised I had a cross country. I was in trouble with my cross country. Like I suppose I maybe hadn't competed in England that much. And to go from Ireland to a championship in France was a massive step. And I remember walking the course thinking, like, I've never done 2-angled steeplechase fences. I was like, I'd not seen these jumps before. And I knew I was in trouble. And that's when I realized I had to go and do something. Like, we made it round. And I suppose the ground didn't affect him as badly as others. But we had, I think, 2 run-outs there, one at the angled steeplechase fences and one at the water, I think. Yeah, no, that was what made me actually go cross-country training.
He came back and sort of made the step up to 5-star. He was top 20 at Po. He then came to Badminton 2017 and completed at Badminton. But your call up to Stragom for the European Championships in 2017, it felt like all of that hard work that you had been doing over the last couple of years really started to come together. He ended up finishing in 7th there. Take us through Stragom, because it was a twisty old cross-country track on that occasion, and very different to the likes of Chatsworth that we've just been talking about. Stragom's very flat, Chatsworth very hilly. So how was that? And what are your recollections of that sort of pretty magic championship?
Yeah, I think like he was going very well on the flat, going to Stragom. Like he's lovely. I loved riding him on the flat. He could actually do passage and tempi changes. So he was actually, we got a little bit on top of that, and it was more fun, and I wouldn't be so worried about the dressage on him. The cross country, I was actually terrified. It was very hard to learn because you were going up and down the same field about 3 times. And I had to walk it so many times to know which up and down I was doing. So it just took, and when it was like with no people, there's just like flimsy ropes separating them all. Mm-hmm. So it was quite confusing. Like, I'd never been to Stragom. So it's actually hard when you go to a venue for a first time for me to learn the cross country and what's coming up next and what turn is coming up next and what's out the next gate. And I did have to walk that a lot of times. And it walked very technical. I was like, ooh, I was a lot more ready for it. So I wasn't half as nervous. I'd done a lot of training. I'd done a lot of training with Sally Corskaden as well. And my husband had built 2 angled hedges, because when I was in Tats 4-star short, it was second from home, and he ran out at the angled hedge and we would have won. I was devastated. And I came home and my husband actually built the 2 hedges. He said, now train over the 2 hedges. He was amazing. You can't do it without people like that in your lives. And Sally, I put them over in Sally Corskaden's, and we trained over them again and again and again. And I think I was out near the end, I think. Certainly the last. I would have done the last group of horses, because I had to wait all day. And I remember watching, I think it was fence 4 with is it the skinny to the 2 angled hedges?
It was wasn't it the first water? Was it fence 4 that was the first water? We had Ros Cantor actually on this show, and she was talking about it with All Star B, because similarly, Chris Bartle's been a massive influence in her career. And she said she sort of kept waiting for the phone call to come in to say, take the long route. And the phone call never came. And she was like, Chris, what do I do? And he was like, stick to your plan. But there was an early fence, wasn't it? And 2 angled hedges going into the water or something. It was very technical.
I think it was a skinny to 2 angled hedges.
Nobody got through it early on.
No.
It was very, very tough.
I was causing carnage, and like it caused carnage all day. And then I think it was coming out of the water. I think Piggy fell foul to that on the chestnut horse. Like, it was trouble everywhere. And then there was 2 angled houses actually into the water before he went into the main arena. That was causing trouble. And I was like, oh my Lord. But the one I most didn't like were the 2 angled hedges, because that's what we had an issue with. And I remember I was last out of the team, and our team wasn't coming anywhere. We'd had riders with trouble. And I just turned around and said to her, I'm going to go long. I said, why would you go long? You've trained for this. Go out and do it. She said, you have to go short. She said, the team aren't going to come anywhere. She said, go out and ride your lines. And I was like, whoa. But actually, he was incredible. He was on his game, and he just, wherever I put him, and there is a photo of me jumping the last hedge, and I have the biggest smile on my face. And I remember it. I remember thinking, oh, thank the Lord, I got through it. So, yeah, no, he was incredible. Like, then I knew he was just a cross-country machine. He knew what to do. It was like he was hunting the flags. And wherever you turned your body, he was like, yep, got this. So he was amazing.
It's always nice to hear when people actually enjoy the cross country round at the time, because reflection is a great thing and there's a lot of pressure and everything else, but actually to be able to kind of go, do you know what, I'm really enjoying this, and that was brilliant. We are totally as one is very, very cool.
Once I got through that, I just kept the smile the whole way around, and I was like, God, this feels amazing. So yeah, I did enjoy it actually.
He looked like a horse, particularly at that stage in his career. He had a smile on his face when he went cross country. Like the look of love for his job was always really apparent in my mind. He always just looked like he was having the best time.
Yeah, and the faster you went, the more he enjoyed it. He loved, I suppose, when you got into that good cross-country pace and you were nicely balanced and he just got up into his stride and he just stayed there. And he was just, he didn't really like you telling him to slow down. But yeah, he just loved it. Like you can't make a horse do it. He just, and he got so excited. He'd go out the start gate and you'd be up to speed straight away. It'd be like, you'd have to steady him and go, hang on a second. So no, we did. He truly loved cross country.
What about the World Equestrian Games in 2018 triumph? We've kind of touched upon them, but that team silver for Ireland, individual fifth, very close, as you've already alluded to an individual medal. Reflecting on that week, obviously, I imagine a few mixed emotions of obviously huge success. Was there ever a feeling of I was the one that got away?
Actually, no. I don't know why. I think in the whole time and all the build up to it, my thing, the way they say you think about something, I just visualize a team silver medal, because I just think if everyone gets a medal, it's so much more fun. Like where if you were the only one to get a medal, yes, that's great for you and everybody's happy for you. But to get a team medal, I think it gets everybody. And it's just, that's what I had visualized. The whole time I dreamt of silver and I dreamt of a team medal. And I actually didn't dream of an individual medal at all. Maybe that's my mistake.
Next time, dream of them both, Sarah. Okay?
Yes.
Both.
It's funny. I never looked back at it ever. And I just think at least it came to our country anyway, because it was actually asked by one of the reporters at the meeting after the event. And they said, how do you feel losing it? And I said, well, we didn't really lose it. It's still coming home to our country. So yeah, no, I was so proud of him. I think what he gave me that day, he couldn't have given me any more. So I could not be so happy that he did that for me, if you know what I mean. So
it's one of those things as well. If somebody had said to you, the week before trial, you'll come home individual fifth and with a team silver.
When I think back, out of all the championships I've been to, everything went very easy. Like the whole run up to it, it's like everything just slotted into where it should be, and everything fell into place really easily. Now it was done off the back of Sally's very hard planning and all the work done before it, but it was a weird feeling. It just seemed to come so easy. Like, yeah, it's hard to explain, but yeah, it just happened very easy and everything fell into place. And then when we were in the accommodation over there, Sam did sit down with your predictions and he said, like, if you got your average best score and we all did this, he said, this is a medal. He said, we don't have to get our best score. You just have to get your average score. And it's actually, that was the one thing that stood out to me and made it think we could actually do it. We could actually win a medal. Like, it just made it very real, which nothing else did. But when he just had it all laid out and he said, like, this is a medal, I was like, oh, that's really doable. So yeah, it was funny. When you have a moment of realization and something just hits home and you think that actually, we could all do that. That could actually happen. So I suppose like the dressage went well enough, but I think when we finished the cross country and I had got off my horse and I was talking to in the box where the reporters bring you in.
Makes sense.
And as one of them was talking to me, I could see the screen to my side of the cross country and I could hear the commentary and they said, Ireland are in bronze medal. And I was like, oh my God. And then they said, now they've moved. I think a Frenchman had a problem. Now they've moved to silver. And I just couldn't contain myself. I was like, oh my God, we're in silver medal. it was so exciting. Like, I have the best memories of that whole week, even though we did have a bit of a situation going into the last trot off. Like, the weeks happened so easily. We all got on as a team so well. And then we happened to get a silver medal. It was just like, you nearly pinched yourself. It was just the most incredible week. So,
was he the kind of horse, or is he the kind of horse that actually, when he does well, like with that silver medal, he knows it and he appreciates it and enjoys it?
Oh, he'd ask for more polos because he thinks he's been brilliant. But I think he always thinks he's been brilliant. He's a funny character because he doesn't like men. So my husband, he had to bring him to the vet one morning because I had something else. And he rang me from the stable and said, Sarah, you have to come out. I said, I'm here 15 minutes and I can't catch him. In a 12 by 12 stable. He is the oddest horse. He wouldn't like you to go up and hug him, but he loves attention. So if you muck out a stable, this is going to sound really weird, he'll follow you in reverse with his bum, and he likes being scratched at the top of his tail.
Okay, which for somebody else, they're probably, if they went into his stable, they'd think, what the hell is he about to do? But
yes, they start to panic and think, oh, he's trying to kick me, he's trying to kick me. I said, no, just scratch at the top of his tail there. And Rocket stands there like, oh. He's a proper weirdo. He's always been the oddest horse. Like, he wouldn't, if I went in and kind of gave his head a cuddle, he'd be like, no, I don't like that. But if you scratch his bottom, he'd love you forever. He's very strange.
Just knows what he wants in life.
Yes.
You obviously had a very long partnership with him. You know, I think you were probably competing him, from a 4-year-old all the way up till when he was probably about 18 or so. You know, that's a long time. How did your partnership with him evolve over that time?
Well, I suppose bought him October as a 4-year-old, and he actually went to Dublin the next year and won the 5-year-olds. So I suppose that was our first thing that we actually thought, we had to have a proper one. And then, I suppose, I don't know. We just kept going and kept training, and he wouldn't pass vets, so we just kept going, and he found every step easy. I never thought he didn't have enough of anything at any level. I never thought he was struggling at anything. Everything was easy. I suppose it was just containing him was the problem, because trying to find breaks, like I have a wall of bits. It was just trying to. He was always incredible jumper, incredible mover, and then very brave. But it was just trying to keep it together. I suppose get him on my side. He was a little bit unruly when he was younger.
We've talked a lot about kind of building a partnership, and Agra are so passionate about protecting a partnership between horse and rider. And actually getting him on side, building that trust. Was there anything that you did in particular that, looking back on, you think that really helped? That was very, very helpful.
I don't know. I just loved them. I suppose over the years, they learn to trust you, and that you're not going to do anything bad to them or put them in trouble. And they just become your friend, I suppose. It's funny. Yeah, it's learned over time. And I think he was the sort of horse, and part of the problem was that he wasn't overly brave as a youngster, but then he decided, if I go at it fast enough and get to the other side, that's okay. So I suppose, like, I had to do a lot of slow trotting over cross-country fences to say, actually, like, you don't need to run. It's not going to bite, and we go slowly. Because if I galloped him flat out at an open ditch, he'd jump it and then run away. But if I trotted him at it, he'd stop. And he did it at training one day, and he was at 4-star level. And I trotted him up to like a ditch, and he came up and went, oh my God, and just took off backwards around the arena. And I was like, Robbie, you're a 4-star. What are you doing? So like, you kind of had to remind him cross country that I wouldn't ever let him. I'd always start off slowly, and I wouldn't let him fly over things, because that was his other answer. Like, it is another way of not being brave. It's just, I'll get there as fast as I can, zoom over it, and that's okay. But yeah, over the years, he learned to trust me, and he got confidence in me. I was never going to ask him something he couldn't do. He scared the life out of me a few times. I do have a photo in Blenheim, and it was a table at fence 3. And afterwards, somebody came back to me and said, Sir, how did fence 3 arrive? And I said, I don't know, okay. I remember him stretching for it, but it was okay. And they showed me a picture. I'd say he took off about 2 strides back away from the fence. Like if you saw where he's taking off, 100% you'd say he never made it. And it just felt like he had to stick the front legs out a little bit more, but nothing too bad. I was like, I nearly died when I saw the photo. I was like, oh my Lord. So yeah, he was just so full of go all the time.
It's kind of amazing though that feeling he gave you at that stage in his career, that actually you trusted him, that he had it under control, and actually he really did have it under control. And you look at his record, and I think there was 1 elimination on there from sort of 43 different internationals. He'd picked up a few run-outs here and there and that kind of thing, but he wasn't a faller. He wasn't a horse that you kind of would see not complete. He was very, very, very reliable.
He was incredibly sharp with those legs. Like even when I got that table wrong in Chatsworth, like I don't know where they went to, but he got them out of the way and landed on them on the other side. He was so sharp that way.
Did you train that at all, or was that totally him?
Well, I suppose you do train it. Like certainly Chris Bartle did a lot. Don't always train, like not always to ride for the correct stride, but if you have to allow them in training to have a couple of deep ones. You're not always going to be perfect. You can't ride a whole like there's very few cross countries where I came back and said, oh, that was lovely, we hit everything spot on. I always say there's always at least one dodgy moment in your cross country round. And if it's pretty, it's not effective.
There's no style marks in cross country.
No.
You just get the job done.
Yeah, I suppose, because when he was younger, I suppose he was a bit naughty and he ran a bit. He learned how to get his own legs out of the way. And I think he was just naturally he had a very good shoulder, and he was just good at doing it, because I don't know if he ever fell cross country.
There's certainly nothing on his record that says.
No, I don't actually. I never even looked back at his record, but I don't think he did. He was incredible. He was just like a cat. He just landed on his legs all the time, thankfully.
What does retirement look like for him now? Because he's still with you. He's had a very special career. Is he still in work, or does he live the life of luxury, having lots of bum scratches?
Well, I'm not sure it's the life of luxury in our wet field at the moment, but he is very hairy, and he's been doing a good bit of babysitting our yearling. He's quite bossy and he teaches them manners. But yeah, like I could have put him with somebody to do a bit of kind of lower level stuff. But for me, he owes me nothing. And actually, he loves playing out in the field. You can stand there and watch him. And he's really naughty. He gets down and bites their legs. And he's very playful, like very playful for a 20-year-old. And he loves that. He loves being out in the field. He gets fed every day. I see him every day. He's in great form. So I did think, I could put a saddle back on him, but I don't think he'd appreciate that.
It's funny, isn't it? Some horses absolutely love retirement and are thoroughly in their element. Others are desperate for you to just do something with them and will keep going until, they absolutely can't do any more. But it's important to know actually what suits him. And it sounds like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, he actually loves being out in the field. And he's always playing or chasing something and it's not moving. He'll just bite it on the bum. He genuinely, I know there are some horses that don't like retirement and they kind of stand at the gate and want in because they've had a life of being in. But yeah, he really took to it and he loves it. So
if you had to sum him up in 3 words, describe Rocket to us.
I don't know. Rocket would be in the sentence anyway. Speedy, talented, and very giving. Like what he did for me was like his heart of a lion. Like what he did for me was incredible. Even when he threw shoes, was a little bit sore at the feet. He was all heart. So
very, very, very special.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing the story of Horseware Stellar Rebound, because he has been an iconic event horse over the last few years, and so many people will have enjoyed watching him. I know I certainly have. And it's lovely to hear a little bit more about him and kind of get an insight into all things Rocket and the bum scratches and everything else. And very delighted that he is your horse of a lifetime.
Thank you very much. You're very kind.
This podcast is supported by Agria, the company behind the UK's only Lifetime Equine Insurance. Their mission is to raise the bar on horses' lifelong well-being, and they offer up to £10,000 of vet fee cover year after year for life. Their Horse of a Lifetime competition celebrates the horses who enrich our lives. To find out more, search for Agria Horse of a Lifetime, where you can enter your horse on the Agria website or catch up with Agria Equine on Instagram and Facebook.